Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Colombian Catwoman vlog podcast. And we continue our series of Blacexpats in Spain. And we have today with us lovely Gina. So welcome to the show, Gina. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great for a Wednesday. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that midweek slump, Wednesday,
Yes.
hump day feeling. So,
Mm.
Gina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where are you located? And yeah, that's it. Can you give us an introduction, please?
Okay, right. So I'm originally from Jamaica, and then I migrated to and I migrated to London in the mid 90s, and I lived there for almost 2 decades, and now I am living in Madrid in Spain. Have been here for just over 11 years now. I'm an online personal trainer and confidence coach for women over 30, well, 35 and over. Mainly, that's my niche. And I'm a mother of an almost 16-year-old. I can't believe it, how time flies. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent, thank you. So welcome, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out to speak with us today, and let's get into it. So
Mhm.
you have lived in the UK, you're from Jamaica, and you live in Spain. What was the reason that you chose to move from the UK to Spain? What was your calling?
What was my calling? One of the obvious ones, which is for love.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of women tend to move for love. I was one of them. So I met my husband, who is Spanish. We met in London many, many months ago now, and we got married there and lived together there for 10 years. And then so we had our daughter there, and we decided to move to Spain because, the weather's much better than the UK, and my family is very dispersed, so I could really live anywhere because we tend to have, like phone relationships more than anything. And I wanted my daughter to have, like physical family around. So it was an easy decision actually for me to move here, and here I am.
Okay. So your husband speaks Spanish and you lived in London. You speak husband in Spanish rather. I hope he speaks it too. But do you speak
I,
Spanish?
yes, I do actually. It's funny because I had always wanted to be fluent in Spanish and French. Don't ask me why, but ever since I was 9 or 10, and so I was always very good at Spanish. I eventually ended up, well, when I met my then boyfriend, before we got married, who was obviously Spanish, he was like, "Oh, I'll teach you," but that was his way of flirting,
He's
and
waiting.
and I thought, no, no, it never works out. It's like asking your partner to teach you to drive. So I said, no, I'm going to do this thing properly. And so I ended up, well, I was close to studying the GCSE anyway in Spanish. So I decided to do that. And then I did A level. Then I ended up doing a diploma there. And we never really spoke in Spanish when we were in the UK. But after our daughter was born, then we started speaking in Spanish. So I was always very good, but then the fluency came because we used to travel back to Spain a lot for holidays and stuff. And yeah, we only spoke to our daughter in Spanish when we were in England. And then when we moved here, we decided to switch. And so we spoke
Makes
to her
sense.
mainly, yeah, mainly in English. So we always spoke English maybe 90% of the time at
Mhm.
home. Yeah, so I'm as fluent as can be. The French needs to catch up. Maybe that'll be my next move. Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? I don't think the weather's as good in France, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We'll
So
see.
10 years ago, is it 10 years ago or 11 years ago?
11.
When you
Mm.
moved to Spain, and what was it like when you kind of landed? Was it Madrid that you all moved to first, and what
Yeah,
was the reception like as a
yeah,
black woman
as a
moving to
black woman.
London? Yeah.
Mm. It really helped that I was already fluent in Spanish, I think, because sometimes, things get lost in translation, or you might think that somebody says something with bad intentions when that's really not the case once you understand, the nuances of the language and so on. So it was still quite a culture shock for me moving. We moved to Madrid because my husband's family is from Madrid. Um, we moved in the middle of a crisis, but I worked for one of the big fours in London, and so I was able to get a similar role working in the office in Madrid. That was the biggest culture shock of all, because companies tend to say we're multinational and we're all one when it suits them, and then the reality is actually, yeah, no, you're very different. So I did 2 years working for one of the big fours. I was working in treasury, and I hated everything about it. I hated the longer hours and the ineptitude of the way they ran things. I hated the fact that my salary was, I hated that my salary was almost half of what I was getting in London. I hated everything, the conditions, everything. And I've always been very vocal, very open. I have to say what's on my mind. And so I just wasn't going to fit in there. I also saw that there was no room for progression unless my boss keeled over. So I thought, I'm not staying here. And, so I decided to quit. I decided to quit what was considered a very good job here in Spain, what was considered a very good salary, but not by my standards. And I'm also a qualified ESL teacher, so I decided to do that. But during those years, I also decided to become qualified as a personal trainer, because it was always what I had wanted to do as well since I was about 20, because I also used to work in a gym in London and I loved it, and it came naturally to me. So I got qualified, and then I was sitting on my qualification for a while. I did the auxiliary thing as a native English teacher, but again, I wasn't going to go very far with that. The pay wasn't great, and I haven't had many experiences working for Spanish companies, but having spoken to so many expats, it just sounds all the same. I thought, okay, I need to be my own boss here for my own sanity. I just can't work for anybody. So I left the teaching job as well, and I did do some private classes, but then I decided to bite the bullet and become my own boss, and that's what I did. Whatever I set my mind out to do, I do.
So how long have you been working as a employed person here in the country?
About full time, about 6 years, I'd say. Yeah. And it has, it was a challenge in the beginning. It was very hard, and to be honest, I could not rely on the Spanish market for my living.
What was it that was so difficult in the beginning? And then number two, why couldn't you rely on the Spanish market to make a living at the time?
Because I felt that they didn't quite get the concept of a personal trainer. So they'd ask me my rates and I'd tell them my rates, and I could almost see them going, what the hell? I'm not paying for that. And some of them actually said, oh my gosh, I could pay, a gym membership and it'll still be cheaper than, having a personal trainer. So they didn't quite get why people need to have a personal trainer as opposed to just going to a gym and going into one of those classes with 30 odd people and not having that one-to-one support, making sure that you avoid injuries and so on. So I had to think outside the box. I did find some expats as clients. So I spent a lot of time in my car driving to the rich areas for clients, which was absolutely lovely. I loved every minute of it. But at the same time, because I also love traveling, I knew that I needed to have an online model as well. So I started working on that bit by bit. And then the pandemic came and I was able to just smoothly make that transition into online. So that's what I did, and then I didn't look back after that. So things picked up.
You were able to navigate the pandemic, and it worked out really well.
It worked out really well.
Advantage. So, would you say that the Spanish market has changed in terms of how people perceive and what they understand by a personal trainer?
Well, I still get some inquiries from like Spanish people, but it's still. I think they have started to grasp to grasp the concept of a personal trainer, but in terms of the cost, which I have to admit, it's still to some degree a bit of a luxury to have. Not everyone can afford a personal trainer, and also, let's face it, the salary in Spain, the average salary is just, it's ridiculous. So it's awful. Exactly. So people just, I find that those who have been coming to me who live here, they just can't afford my rates. And so I rely on, again, because I'm online now, international market, and that's where my clients, so my clients are pretty much
makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. That's where the money's at, and you're offering a service.
Exactly.
You need to eat food. You've got bills to pay,
need to eat.
and you can't work for
Exactly.
free. So
we can't work for free, sadly. And I've paid my dues because I worked for free for many, many years. Like prior to getting my qualification, I helped so many women, even back in London. They were like, Gina, can I work out with you? And blah, and asking for tips and so on. And I did it all for free. So, now I'm like, I need to get paid for my experience, please.
Like you need to be thinking about the present and the future and so on and so forth. So,
absolutely.
Things have to change. I understand that totally.
For sure.
So you market to an international market, and working as a self-employed person in Spain, has that improved?
Oh God, no. Let me just be honest, it hasn't. And at some point I can see myself moving back to the UK, because Spain, I'm just gonna be blunt. How can I'll try to put it nicely. I don't think the country wants to see us improve, especially, I don't want to make this about race, but in general, I don't think they help self-employed people enough. Let's put it that way. I feel like they want to keep us small. They want to keep us in the system, where we're humble and we're happy to earn €1,000 a month and just suck it up and take all the shit and swallow it. And if you don't like it, we've got 100 people waiting outside to fill your position. That's how I feel. So being self-employed, I couldn't be asked with the bureaucracy. So I actually paid for a gestora, like somebody to keep the books for me and so on, because I just couldn't be bothered to deal with that. So I pay a fee every month.
Find reasonably priced gestors to do what you need to do, depending upon the nature of your needs.
Exactly. So I thought, you know what, let me just pay for that headache, pay to not have that headache every month. And so it's worked out fine. But I'm not going to lie, it's very discouraging being self-employed in Spain. The tax system just wants to keep us small, wants to keep us down. It takes a big, you have to have a big pair of,
cojones.
Cojones, exactly.
You can say it, lo puedes decir, there's no problem.
Oh, perfecto. Pues eso, hay que tener un par de cojones, pero bien grandes.
See, that's live. So we've got a lot of similarities. So I'm a qualified CELTA teacher as well, and lots of things. So my mother was from Jamaica. I'm from the UK, and I'm very much interested in the world of business, which is why I'm kind of indagando. We're going down that line, because I wanted to ask you, would it be worthwhile you moving from self-employed into a small business, because the tax and the opportunities that are available in many countries, it's the same. You can write other things off, and you can get bigger loans and so on and so forth once you go down the small business route or the LLC route. So is that an option for you and your business model, or
I have considered that, but there are some other things going on as well, where now I'm like, do I hold off a little bit, and maybe I might be moving back to the UK. I'm now separated from my husband, and we're getting divorced, and so I've got that uncertainty about whether what's the next move. So a lot of things are up in the air, because when you sometimes we need closure to be able to move on to something else, because depending on how things go, you might pivot one way or the other. So I'm kind of in limbo at this stage, but it's something that I've considered. So we'll see how that goes.
sorry to hear about the breakup of the relationship, and I can only imagine
No
that
worries.
wasn't easy. With that, would you think that you would have moved to Spain if you hadn't met your partner? Would you have moved to Spain, or was it?
Um, I probably would have. I don't know if I would have moved to Spain per se, but I probably would have remained in London, if I'm honest, because I had a very good salary when I was in London, and I was still able to travel quite a lot. I had 5 weeks off at my my last workplace, and we could buy an extra 2 weeks, which was brilliant. So I had, like a total of 7 weeks, and I traveled quite a lot. So I might have stayed and just relied on, visiting as many
Holidays?
different, yeah, yeah.
So
But
so you're saying that you had a better quality of life in London because the finances
I
allowed
did.
you to do that you wanted to do?
100%, yes, the quality of life was much better. The decision was purely based on, our daughter, her quality of life, having her grandma here, because my mom lives in the US, for example. So just having her paternal grandma and granddad here, that helped a lot. She is one of the luckiest kids in the world, I have to say. She chose wisely, and I'm really happy for her. I remind her from time to time how lucky she is, and she rolls her eyes at me. She's like, "Yeah, you said."
Your mother. Who's the
No,
luckiest person?
my daughter chose her parents wisely.
Okay.
Yes, so it was mainly because of her. The move was mainly because of her. So I don't really regret it per se, but absolutely the quality of life in the UK for me was much better than moving here. The only thing that really kept me going here was, okay, the weather's much better, and to be honest, when I think about moving back to England, I'm like, I can't stand a whole year with that weather.
I hear you. The electric blanket and it's like out for the whole
Exactly.
year. Yeah, it doesn't
Oh
get
my
better.
goodness, for a whole year. But I think, again, what kept me going was because I always had a holiday to look forward to. As soon as I got back, it's like, okay, where to next? And I book the next one. So I always had something to look forward to, and that helped me get through. So, I'll probably have to do the same thing again when I move.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I feel this from my observations and also from my own personal experience. Do you feel that your financial situation here in Spain didn't allow you to have the holidays and the things that you wanted to do? Would you say that was your situation or not? Or in between?
No, I was able to do a lot more in the UK. And to be honest, the first few years after we moved here, because my husband decided that he was going to start his own business. So obviously we had to watch the finances a lot. So for the first 3 years, we didn't really, I can't remember. Yeah, it took 3 years before we were able to go back to Jamaica, for example, for a holiday. So it was very hard in the beginning. For the past few years, I've been able to make up for some of the lost time. But even now, even though I'm much happier now because again, I'm not working for anybody, but if I, if I was, let's say I hadn't moved, I would have been able to still carry on. Maybe I'd still be working for that multinational, I might have been a lot further on in my career. And it was doable because I had enough disposable income to do what I wanted to do. And let's be honest, I mean, I'm to some degree, actually, I'm very happy and I'm grateful because, again, my mental health is priority to me, and I know that I could not have carried on for this long in Spain working in a Spanish company. Absolutely no way. So I'm grateful for that. But if and when I move back to the UK and let's say an opportunity came about where, I have to work with somebody again, I wouldn't turn my nose up at it, if the salary's good. Let's put it that way.
You could do that part-time and do what you're doing full-time, part-time,
For example,
various income streams. That's what it's about, isn't it? So we're not dependent on one.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't want to give up what I'm doing now anyway. I love what I'm doing. It does have its disadvantages, because of fluctuations in salary, in your earnings, and so on. So it's not all it's not all a bed of roses, I have to admit that part. So yeah.
That's part and
But
parcel of being self-employed, isn't it? When you go on holiday, there's no holiday pay.
There's no holiday pay. Exactly. And I guess that's why, for me, having an online model is so fantastic, because before I transitioned, I would go away for 2 weeks and obviously zero income for those 2 weeks when I was doing just face to face. And I'm like, oh my God, now I need to make up for this. And yeah, but now, I can go away for a week or two, and at least, it's never like, well, sometimes it is, but hardly. You can't, I think as a self-employed person, you can't fully disconnect from your work. So you're still going to be doing stuff on the laptop, even if you don't have client-facing work. So, but yeah, I love what I do, and I hope I'll be able to carry on doing it. And of course, if I can have another stream of income, fantastic, or 2 or 3.
That's what it's about these days, isn't it? That's what it's about, the hustle.
Exactly, the hustle. Yeah.
So a couple of things. How was your integration into the culture? You speak the language, you married a local, you guys had a child, you went to the capital city. How was the reception by the family of you as a daughter-in-law? Was it not an issue in your local neighborhood, etc., friendship groups, etc.?
Okay. Luckily, it was not a problem at all for my in-laws. In fact, they are hands down the best in-laws that I know. They've just been exceptional. Yeah, my mother and father-in-law and, my cousin-in-laws, and they've all been amazing, even now, during this time where we're actually separating and stuff. They've been really great. They've never been one to meddle or to, get into the middle of things, and it's just been fantastic. As for friends, it was really hard going in the beginning, because we had already traveled here a few times. I had some mutual friends, so my husband's friends, basically, they became my friends as an extension. But I didn't feel settled. For the first 3 years that I was here, I never felt settled, because I actually said to him, I don't have any real friends. And he said, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh, well, they're your friends, they're not my friends. So that's also one of the reasons why I started a Jamaicans in Spain Facebook page, because when I was in London, Jamaicans are everywhere, right?
Depends on the part of London. Depends on what part of London, but yes.
Well, that's true. Yes. Well, I was in North London. We have a house in Tottenham, and there are probably more Jamaicans than bloody English people
Good.
there. So yeah. So it was so when I was in London, that wasn't a problem. But then I moved here, and I was like, everybody thought I was from West Africa or whatever. So then I started thinking, surely there has to be more Jamaicans here. I can't be the only one. And I went in a search. It was so difficult finding Jamaicans. But then I created a Facebook page, and one by one, people started messaging me, and that's how I ended up having the WhatsApp group. So it was only after about 3 or 4 years then I started to make my own friends, because as I said, the mutual friends that my husband and I had, they were okay. I've talked to them before about, like racism and stuff, because I've heard lots of stories about racism, your racist issue. And, their argument was that sometimes it's just like, it's not racism, but more, like being prejudiced, because if they see a Black person and if you look all right and you dress all right, so they know you travel, then they'll just automatically treat you. You might think, doesn't have a status in the country or something like that. So their argument is that it's not always racism. Sometimes it's about, I guess, your, how can I put it? How much you've got going for you, I guess, then they see you in a different light. you know.
So somebody, my guest last week was saying it's more to do with like classism, and it's more to do with
Yes,
that. So
classism.
if you've got the right passport and you're black, then that's cool. But and the right kind of accent or money or country
Exactly. Yep. A lot of it's that. Sadly, it's a shame. But then, absolutely not making any excuses for them. But I find that, like the stories that I've heard here in Spain, they are very overt with the treatment of Black people. I'm like, are you kidding me? How are we going to change this system here? It's insane. It's off the charts. We know that racism is in the UK, but it's covert. But here it's like just out. It's like this is it. Take it or leave it. And I'm like, no, it's crazy. We're not in the 19th century anymore. And this is happening in a first world country. I just can't grasp it.
I'm like, the developed country first world.
Exactly. It's more like a third world. Spain is like a third world country. I'm sorry, but yeah.
It's definitely reminiscent, like some things that happened, very reminiscent of times like I lived in Colombia for a while, or
Yes.
I spent time in Mexico. It's very reminiscent of times and there things that happened down there. It's like, okay, interesting.
Yes. And you expect these things in a third world country, but not here. And I'm having these discussions all the time when I have to deal with Spanish people for whatever tramite, paperwork or whatever. I have to be vocal. I can't shut up. And I know that they're thinking, well, go back to your country then. And I'm thinking, no, take criticism and improve. But yeah, I can't see it changing, and it makes me feel desperate sometimes.
So just kind of adding to that, how is your daughter received, and how is your daughter's experience in school, and friendship groups and the extensions of all of those things, and their parents, and
Okay, so she's been very lucky. I remember once when she was in infant school very early on, maybe she was about 5, and she said to me something about like basically, so she said something along the lines of the color of her skin, because some kid commented on the color of her skin and almost wanting to say like white skin is better. And I said, listen very carefully. Maria doesn't know what she's talking about, because white people sit in the sun all day to look like this. Okay, they want to be darker. And I said, on the other hand, you also have some Black people who bleach their skin because they want to get to another color. I said, you are mixed race, you're right in the middle. So sometimes you might feel left out, depending on which side you're talking to. But actually, I said, you have nothing to worry about. The color of your skin is perfectly fine just the way it is, and it's all about how you think about yourself. So I got that into her from very early on, and she got it. And that was just a one-off incident. Okay. And she never mentioned it again. And she was always one of the cool kids in school, because she gets on with everybody. She treats everybody equally. She's never one to bully other kids or make other kids feel bad if they're not that academic or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she gets invited to everything, and it was very tiring. I'm so glad that she's more independent now.
What about your business?
Oh my God, go about your business. Leave me alone, man. But
do you say that that's also to do with the fact that you live in the capital city? Have you had like those kind of experiences everywhere that you've gone around Spain? Like it's been cool, and maybe you went on holiday to this village or to that part or something like that.
Even on holiday, like she's always been able to make friends very quickly wherever we went, like we've visited some other parts of Spain, and it's always been the same thing. She's made friends very easily. However, I think it was maybe late last year, she started expressing some, not concerns, but just her thoughts and feelings, where she said, Mom, actually, she wants to move to London to study now. She wants to do sixth form, because she said, Mom, like I have a lot of friends, but I don't feel like I have a friend. She said, I want to be around my people. She goes, I want to be able to talk about a patty and not have somebody else be kiss it though. What's that? She said, so she's like,
Un
Mom, I
empanada
don't
con sabor.
Yes, exactly. She goes, she says, I want to be around my people. I don't feel like I fit in here. I want to be able to just wear my braids and not having people ask me 1,000 questions about it because it's like strange to them or whatever. So I said, I completely get you. I completely got where she was coming from. So she actually said, I want to be around my people. I'm fed up of, like just I want to be able to have certain conversations and people get it straight away.
So she
So
acknowledges at the age of 16, 15, 16,
yeah,
that's
15 going
not possible for her in the place, not the place of her birth, but where
exactly.
she's lived and grown
Yeah.
up and her peers. That's not an option in the capital city. Yeah.
No, it's not an option here in the capital city. No, no, no. And another thing as well, I don't know what it will be like for her in the UK, but she has always been more mature than her peers, than her classmates. Always, all the teachers have always said it. And I don't know whether that might be an issue as well. But I feel that because, in general, again, it sounds like I'm stereotyping, but I'm talking about the majority here. A lot of Spanish people they're not well traveled. Their idea of a holiday is to pack their bags, jump in the car, and a la playa. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
To the south,
exactly. Drive
the
to the
nearest beach. Yeah.
exactly. So they don't have those broader experiences where you get from traveling where it enriches you and it opens up your eyes to other cultures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also one of the reasons. But then when you're in England, even if you don't travel a lot because it's so multicultural, well, again, certain parts, but in
I'm not going
certain
to
parts,
idolise race relations in the UK because they're quite similar. The
yeah,
UK, not as bad. So I
yeah.
compare somewhere to Spain, somewhere like Spain, like the US, like it's very insular. It's all about
Hmm.
us.
Hmm.
We travel from north to south and east to west, and we don't have a need
Yes,
to go elsewhere. And we've got the best
yes.
of everything.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my God. Yes, the US. So yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, she's over it. She's over it. She's ready to move on. And I'm just so glad, to
That's
be
at
honest.
16. That's big. That's big and
Mm,
that's deep to say.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
what would you say? You're on the other end of your time here, maybe, and your experience.
Mhm.
But what would you say to Black people, Black expats that are thinking about moving to Spain? Would you say don't go to the capital? Do go to the, what suggestions would you give to fellow Black peers that are thinking about relocating to Spain?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I have been to Barcelona twice, and obviously, when you go somewhere for holiday, it's not the same as when you live there. But I did get the feel that Barcelona is a bit more advanced or a little bit ahead of, say, Madrid, even though Madrid is the capital. So I wouldn't necessarily say move to the capital. It really depends on what you're looking for as well. You know, are you more a beach person? Then obviously go to Barcelona. Madrid is beautiful. I don't know what the expat community is like in Barcelona, um, but for anybody thinking of moving here, I think it would help if you already have an established online business for sure. That will help a great deal. Um, or unless you've got a lot of money already lined up where you can, if you want to start a business that's not location independent, then you need to have, a really deep pocket or deep pocket to be able to start that. And what I encourage it depends on what your lifestyle, what your current lifestyle is as well, where you are. If you're looking for a change, then maybe come for a while, maybe for 6 months, get a feel for the place, see if you like it. It also helps if you speak the language, again, for, communication purposes, for understanding, because, yeah, as I said, I've had experiences where even run-ins with people, and it's not necessarily coming from a racist perspective. It's just like how one Black person would have an altercation with another Black person, kind of thing. So knowing the language really helps. And if you already have a great lifestyle where you are, then I don't know if I would necessarily want to move, to be honest, because as I said, I wouldn't have moved if it wasn't for our daughter. I wouldn't have moved. I would have just stayed and carried on traveling around the world. So it depends.
So what would you say to the Gina of 11 years ago? What advice would you give to the Gina 11 years ago?
Okay, I would have said, have a proper discussion about how things are going to go when you move, because, and this, yeah, I would say that to myself for sure. And I think it would apply to anybody else. When you're in relationships, sometimes we have expectations, but we haven't talked about them. And we think we're on the same page with with our partner, and we're absolutely not. So I would have said, yes, have some serious and open conversations about certain things, especially pertaining to the decisions of our daughter. Do you want to stay here for forever? Do you want to stay for a while and see how things go, then review after a few years? Have those conversations. That's what I would have said, because then I would have made some different decisions.
Yeah, on the back of those answers. Insight, a perfect science, as they say. Let me have a look and see what else I'd like to ask you. So, yeah, we've talked about integration. The initial years were kind of, not ideal, but you were able to form communities online, and then they became communities in person. And that's in particular for you, the Jamaican community. That was what you longed for. And would you say that that's been consistent, or would you say that, a lot of people have left, so it's kind of a little bit transient? What would you say about that community that you formed? Is it
Yeah, that community helped me so much. In the earlier years, it made me, I could feel like, okay, yes, I can do this because I've got my people. So we used to do link ups and so on. I used to host, some other people in the group used to host as well. But then, as you said, some have relocated, back to, they've moved to Canada, or, to China, or wherever, back to the US. And it's changed over the years, especially since the pandemic as well. So we haven't had a face-to-face gathering since the pandemic, and the dynamics of the group has changed quite a bit, because when we had new joiners, I would have a personal phone call with each person who joined, so I could, we could get to know each other better and so on. And lately I just, life just took over and I haven't been able to do that. So it's changed a little bit, but I'm hoping to bring us back closer together as well, which is why I've started to suggest that we do some Zoom link ups to begin with, and then start doing some face-to-face link ups as well. So hopefully people will start warming up again to the idea of meeting face-to-face, getting to know each other better, so we start feeling more like a community again, because it has gotten a little bit cold over the past 3 years or so.
Well, kind of statistically, I've talked about how we've lost social skills as a result of the pandemic. That's what the bigger powers have said, and that's, across the board for most people. But I wanted to ask a couple of things about the group. So your group is Jamaican, it's for Jamaicans, is that correct?
Yes, Jamaicans, or whether by birth or by naturalization, or even if you have like a great grandparent or whatever, as long as you've got a touch of Jamaican blood, it doesn't matter how watered down it is, you're welcome in the group.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that point for other people that might be looking for community. Is it a space for them, or is it not a space for them? Because it's important to know, who's it for and who's it not for, because we all need a community and we all need safe spaces as well.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I want to necessarily ask many more questions, Is there anything that you would like to say that I haven't asked you? Anything that you'd like to talk about?
Not off the top of my head. I know that we're running out of time, but I guess I'd like to say for anyone who's listening and anyone who's struggling with, maybe they're in a relationship and they're feeling uneasy. I think it's really important to have the hard conversations, and it's really important to go with your heart as well. Because for me, I was married for almost 20 years, together for almost 21. I got married really young. Yeah, I was 21 when I got married. And sometimes you grow apart, right? Which was what my situation, at least. You grow apart, and that also happens when you're not having regular serious conversations and spending time together and just taking everything for granted, basically. And just, you just get into a routine, or especially when you have kids, you just take over the parental role and you forget about the core, of the relationship, and you forget that there were two people who became a couple before kids became involved. So have those conversations and go with your heart. Don't listen too much to what others might say, because sometimes love is not enough. And just because two people are very nice, it doesn't mean that they are right for each other. So that's a key message that I'd like to get out there as well. And I'm also a breast cancer survivor. So again, that's something that I'm in lots of groups on Facebook with so many women who are struggling. I've had a double mastectomy. Some women have lost their partner after, they've had to go through those things. And it really breaks my heart because, some women end up feeling less than because, they've lost something that they think define them, or as a woman, and those things can be really tough. But I'm glad to say that because of my positive mindset, I've been able to overcome those things. And I want to say, if anyone's listening, you absolutely can overcome those difficulties. It's hard work, but with some consistency and self-care and self-love.
And support as well, I would imagine.
And support, absolutely. Support is key. And talking about your problems, I think it's key as well, rather than just, bottling it all up. It doesn't help. I think it makes things worse. So yeah, just those things I'd like to mention.
Just like to ask a question about your journey. You were diagnosed, I imagine, whilst you were here. Is that
no, actually, I was diagnosed in London.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 29 at the time of diagnosis, and I think it was a triple negative breast cancer, which just means that it was non-hormonal, just comes out of nowhere. But the experts said that it's also stress related, and I think in my case it was, because I had a couple of years in my last company where I was really stressed out, climbing the corporate ladder and all of that, and experiencing some covert racism.
The UK does it best.
The UK does it best. So yes, and I didn't I didn't handle the stress very well, because I remember saying to my mom and some of my friends that, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I didn't end up in a mental institution. But then the stress manifested in a different way. So so I was diagnosed in the UK and I got treated there. The mindset, it's absolutely key. That was half of the battle for me. After I got over the shock and I grieved and said, oh, it's unfair because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I work out. And then once I accepted that actually nobody deserves to get sick, that's when the healing really started happening for me, because I accepted that this is it. And now the only choice that I had was to see how to beat that thing. And that's what I did. I became proactive and I decided that it wasn't going to bring me down, and it didn't. So I got treated there in the UK as well, and it was great.
Okay, well done, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap it up today?
Not at all. It was great talking to you. I think it was a fantastic session. No, I don't have anything else. If anyone wants to, reach out or ask any questions or whatever, then I'm always happy to answer and help.
But let's just get
people
back a couple of things. Your services, the services that you provide, are personal coaching, is that correct?
Yes, so I do fitness coaching and I do personal coaching as well. I call it confidence coaching, but it's, mindset. So I help women because, again, when we get to a certain age, and for me, I think that was over 35, sometimes our mind starts to play tricks on us like, oh,
Hormones.
yeah. Exactly. And hormones, absolutely. Yes. You're not a spring chicken anymore, or who's going to want you now, or, all those things, especially if you're in a relationship that you're not happy with, the mind is going, oh, you better stay because there's nothing out there, or, and then all these things, start going through your mind. So I help women with that. Some of my clients, one of my past clients, she was approaching 50 and she came to me, she said, Gina, she was mildly depressed and stuff, and she ended up finding a boo that was 15 years younger than her, and she was like, Gina.
What's that film? Waiting to exhale. Waiting to exhale. She exhaled.
Exactly. So that's my sweet spot. I absolutely love it. I'm proud of what I do. My coaching is not like a generic package where, okay, this is it. And, I'm flexible in the way I coach my clients because we're all so different, and what works for one person might not work for the other one. But yeah, so it's all online. I do sessions via Zoom.
Fantastic.
And yes, and then for my clients who have, like weird schedules and so on, if they want exercise, then I have an app as well where they can, go in and do their sessions in their own time. And then for other clients, I do the coaching via Zoom, and I do the sessions via Zoom where I work out with them as well.
So what's your website? How can people get in contact with you? And also, so this is a bit of a triple, the WhatsApp group or the support group for the Jamaican community. So where can people find you? What are your details?
Okay, right. So for the Jamaicans in Spain, they just they can go onto Facebook and type Jamaicans in Spain, and they can send me a message there, and then that way they get. I eventually add them to the WhatsApp group. For my business, it's GinaFit.com. That's my website. I'm also on Instagram at GinaFit Madrid. I haven't posted in a long time because of all the divorce and everything that's going on, but I'm still on there. People come to me, they message me, like people find me. I create posts on breast cancer sometimes, and they find me that way, and I provide support and so on. And I'm on Facebook as well, Gina Fit Personal Trainer. Again, I've got a page there where they can message me. So I'm all over the socials. I just because of the divorce and everything, I had to take some time off from like posting. I just didn't have the bandwidth to do it all. So but I'm around and very much active and alive.
Okay. Outsource those things that you can't deal with right now is what I would suggest.
Sorry, say again?
Outsource the things that you can't deal with right now.
Exactly. I started doing that for a while. I started outsourcing because being on the socials just drains me. Not my strong point. So yes, I shall be going back to that in the future. As I said, I took some time off from the socials, and I'm going back on there very soon. So yes, I might just outsource again because I hate it, and we shouldn't have to do things that we hate.
Go with your strengths. That's what
exactly.
It's about, isn't it? So yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Miss Gina Fit, for your time, your energy, your honesty, your openness today. It's been fantastic connecting with you, and feel like lots of things in common. Lots and lots of things in common.
Yeah.
So please like and share this blog, this series of Black Expats in Spain. I am the Colombian Catwoman. We are documenting the journey and stories of Black expats in Spain and changing the narrative that's out there. We are here, we're doing different things, we're not all the same. We've all got different stories to tell, and our stories are important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. If you'd like to share your story as a Black expat in Spain, please get in contact with me, Edme, jce101@hotmail.co.uk. I also teach Spanish and I teach English as a foreign language. So again, JCE.
We do have a lot in common. You've got the Celta, I've got the Celta.
Exactly. And I want to get into coaching. That's the next thing for me as well.
Fantastic. I love it. We'll be talking more for sure.
So reach out, but please, we want to keep sharing these stories of Black expats in Spain. Our stories count. We're here and we're doing great things in the country. And so from me, the Colombian Catwoman, I am over and out. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Bye.